Hello and welcome to Get Started. I'm Merlin, and in this video we'll be looking at building our first models for Warhammer 40,000. I'll teach you how to build an Assault Intercessor, a Necron Warrior and a Canoptic Scarab Swarm. I'll also give you a few handy hints and tips on how to make the most out of building and to make it easier when it comes to painting. First off, a few health and safety tips. 1. Make sure you are working in a well-lit and well-ventilated area. 2. Make sure you have a flat and stable surface to work on. 3. If you're a younger viewer, make sure you have adult supervision, especially when using sharp tools like plastic cutters. And 4. Don't rush yourself. Take your time to read through the instructions and familiarise yourself with the frames. Okay then, let's look at the components we'll be using to build our models. First off, we've got these plastic cutters. They work much like scissors, in which two halves of metal come together to form a cutting edge. The bit of plastic goes in here, and we simply pinch them and it will cut the components out. After we've cut our components out, we'll need something to clean them up. There are quite a few tools. The safest of all is this. It's a mold line remover. It's a dull, sharp edge that will allow you to easily remove larger chunks of plastic frame still attached to your models, as well as mold lines. 2. My personal favourite, the hobby knife. This is a sharp implement. Again, you might need adult supervision if you're using this. And 4, there's also a file. These can be a lot easier than the mold line remover and the hobby knife, as you'll end up with a smooth, flat surface afterwards. Also, when dealing with small components, I suggest having a pair of tweezers on hand. It makes it easier, especially if you've got sausage fingers like me. And our final component, if we're going to build our models fully, we'll need plastic glue. I use this one. It's a poly cement that helps meld the two parts of plastic together. Alright then, let's get on and build our first model. We'll start with the Assault Intercessors. First off, grab yourself frame A. This is the frame with the Assault Intercessors on. Take time to familiarise yourself with the frame. As you can see, each component has a number next to it. This hip guard is component 8. For this video, we'll build the first Assault Intercessor in the command manual. And as you can see from this instruction guide, we need components 34 through to 39. So, let's get started. Let's start with our first 3 components, parts 34, 35 and 36. So this is the two halves of the body and the head. Part 34 is this one up here. So we'll take our clippers and making sure we have this flat edge upwards, as we want to push that against the side of the model we want to separate. So we'll go in at the top here first. So the flat edge against the frame, we can cut like so. Then we do this all the way around our model, making sure we watch out for our fingers. Then gripping hold of the component tightly as we cut the last tab. Okay, we've cut our first 3 components out. When cutting out part 35, take extra care of these little posts. They're required to help attach the arms later on. Next it comes to cleaning up our components. I'll show you how to clean up one component and then we'll move on. I'll do the rest off camera. So, when it comes to building our models, we want to make sure we look around, and as you can see, just on the leg there is a line where the two halves of the mould were pushed together. We'll take our mould line remover tool and scrape along this to remove it until we have a nice flat surface. areas like this, where we still have a bit of the frame attached to our model, we'll need to apply a little bit of hard pressure with our mold line remover to remove it. There we go. Then we can smooth it flat as before. So do this on all your components and we'll move forward. Okay, we have our first 3 components clipped out and now cleaned up. So what we've got to do next is we take the head, and as we can see, zooming into here, there is a slightly angled groove that the head will fit into. We then take the front half of the torso, line it up, sandwiching the head between it and pushing firmly together until we hear a click. So that is our first assembly. So back to our frame, we now need to find parts 37, 38 and 39. So 37 is this chainsword here. So we'll just simply work our way around, cutting the component out. 38 is this bolt pistol here. And 39 is this backpack down here. So now we can start to clean up our components. We'll start with the chainsword here. There's not too many components of sprue left that we need to remove. So we can simply drag our knife along edge like so to remove that. Then we had a connection tab in here. And then finally, got a mold line there. And there. Do that for all your components and we're ready to attach them to our model. Okay, our arms and backpack are cleaned up. Now we can push them onto our model. We'll start with the chainsword arm. This goes onto the left peg here. We simply line up with a hole and push down until it's comfortably in position. For the bolt pistol, we do the same. Line up the hole with a peg and push down till it's resting at the correct angle. Finally, the backpack is pushed into place on the rear of the model. All what's left to do is take one of the 32mm hex hole bases from the bag and push them down. And then we have our first model. So there we have it. We've built our first model. Follow the steps in your command manual to build the other 4 members of your squad. When it comes to the sergeant, you have 2 options. You can either have a chainsword and heavy bolt pistol, or a chainsword and plasma pistol, plus a helmeted or bare head. The choice is entirely yours. Right, let's move on to our Necrons. Time to build our Necron Warriors. And for this one, we'll use the model with components numbered 1 to 5. You'll notice on the frame, each Necron Warrior has the choice of 2 heads. This is so when you come to have more, you can help them look a little bit more unique. Finally, each Necron Warrior has the choice of either a Gauze Flayer or a Gauze Reaper. All our missions use the Gauze Flayer, so I'll be building that for our models. Also, as we only need 5 for our first mission, we can build 5 now and 5 later on. Right, grab yourself frame P from the box. We're looking for the model with components numbers 1 to 5. Our first part is his torso, number 1, right here. So we'll cut this out. As of our assault intercessor, we want to put the flat edge of our clippers up against the model, so we don't damage any of that lovely detail. Then work your way around your model, making sure you hold on to it as you cut that last tab off. Okay, next we'll need parts 5 and 2. This is his front torso and his left arm. Make sure we cut the tabs on the head first, otherwise these could snap off and you might even lose and damage your components. Next, we want the Gauss Flayer 3A. And our final component is all the way down here, component 4. So put our frame off to the side. Now we can clean these up. As these are much more smaller and delicate models, I do suggest using a knife, so get adult supervision to help you. We'll do the arm first, as it's a fairly small and easy component to show you how to cut. So, make sure we cut away from ourselves, like so. That way, we run less risk of accidentally catching ourselves with the blade. To help remove mold lines, run your blade perpendicular to your model, like so. Okay, with all our components cut out and cleaned up, we can start assembling. The first thing we want to do is to take our arm and push it into the hole on the left side of our torso. It should easily slot into place and then stay in there. Next, we'll take parts 5, the torso, and parts 4, the head. We need to push the peg on the back of the head into the hole on the torso. Like so. Next, we can push our torso onto the peg of our body, like so. Next, take ourselves a 32mm hex hole base and push the peg next to the foot of a Necron Warrior into position. Now, time for Merlin's top tip. When it comes to attaching our gun, there's 2 ways we can go about this. We can either put the component in position as the instructions say. This, though, has the downside of blocking detail later on. So what we want to do, though, is if we look at the shoulder connection, we can see there's a small protruding nub. What we want to do is remove that. So I suggest a knife, as it's a fairly small detail. So what you want to do is gently clip away with your knife that small nub. Make sure you take extra care, as we have delicate components here. So with that now smooth peg, we can push the gun support arm into the back of the gun, and this will slot nicely into the shoulder. That will allow us to remove it for painting later on. Okay, with frame B still out, we'll now build a Necron Scarab Swarm. So, we have 3 Scarab Swarms on our base. If we flip over, we can see that 2 of them have rather thin pegs that correspond with these rocks. Our final swarm has fat pegs which go straight into a 40mm base. So we want parts 51 and 52. Let's cut those out right now. When it comes to our scarabs, we have some fairly small components we've got to worry about. So we'll make sure we clip here first. That frees up that tab from the legs. Next we'll do this one up here. Getting these delicate areas first means there won't be any pressure put on them later. Next, if we just cut here and here, next here, and finally we can cut our last 2 tabs here and here. Now we'll clean those components up. There we go, we have our components cleaned up. Next, if we turn our scarab over and look at it really closely, we'll notice that one peg is slightly bigger than the other. If we check our holes, we've got one larger hole and one smaller hole. So we want to make sure we line these up correctly. So our small peg goes in there, and our large peg goes in the back. Make sure we put gentle pressure on so we don't damage any of our components. Like so. Next, we can line these larger pegs up with the holes on a 40mm base. There we go. That's our scarab swarm. We'll have 2 that work like that, and 1 that works by simply pushing. So there we have it. We've built our first models and took our first steps into the world of Warhammer 40,000. Sadly though, they're looking a little grey. I think it's time we remedy that with part 2, painting. So that was episode 1 of Get Started. We've built our models. Let's paint them in part 2. I've been Merlin. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.